Oh yeah, cancel it. Other worksheet to be clear. This can go.
Morning, Mike.
Hi, Steve.
Got the headphones all connected now?
Yep. I thought I saw something saying this is cancelled, but I can't find it. So maybe I was just making it up.
If it is, I have a customer call I'll jump on.
Yeah, I seriously may be making it up. So apologies if I'm. Yeah. Well, let's give it a couple of minutes anyway. So I see what happens.
That's what I plan to do.
Yeah.
Hi, Sal.
Good morning. There was no updates for the GRC in the last 2 weeks, as far as I can tell. We've had discussions on other calls. Is there anything that we were expecting to update?
I know at the CSA meeting, they were planning on editing some documents and continuing them on the GRC. I wasn't able to make the CSA meeting yesterday. We had a workshop going on at the conference in San Francisco yesterday.
Okay. Might be a short update, but Mari has joined us. Mari, welcome to the GRC. They showed up to the attestation meeting yesterday, which was excellent and a very good place to start. But with their questions, comments, and expertise, this is also a very good place to have them.
Yay! Happy to be here.
Hello. All right, so we're probably going to give it 1 or 2 minutes. I was just saying we look a little bit late today on the schedule.
Did I see a thing saying this is cancelled, or is that my imagination? Or was it Mark couldn't make it or something? I don't know what I saw.
Yeah, we were having a bit of a situation with today's GRC.
I know Bart Bauer can't make it as he's at a conference on the East Coast.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
It's a bunch of just schedule conflicts we didn't realize until today. So you know what? I think that we should give it until 5, but I know that our core members aren't going to be able to be here today because they are mostly doing CC at external events. It may be worth just coming back and joining in on this, especially with Mari, with having you joined. I want to make sure to give you a clear introduction to the full core team of GRC members. And I think today, with the emails that I've seen, this is about what I expected for this call. I think the one thing that I will state, so Mari, if you're just getting familiar a little bit more so with the Linux Foundation, one thing that you can always use when looking at these is both, I mean, you can come to these live calls, these recordings, but also make sure to keep track of I'm just trying to bring it up at the same time. Does anyone have a link to the GRC meeting notes that we can put into the chat real quick?
I don't have them open.
I don't either. Sorry.
So
yeah, I'll go find
I clicked on a link in the invite yesterday, and it pulled the meeting notes right up.
Okay.
Was that for the GRC or for the yesterday's meeting?
Yesterday's meeting.
Oh yeah. So there's no link in the invitation for this one that I could see.
Okay.
which It's just something that I've got to fix. I'll tell you. Is there anything else that's burning this week that we absolutely need to make sure that is on schedule for the following week?
I don't think so. Although I'm very
Awesome.
interested in talking about MITRE as how the confidential computing impacts it. Now, a couple years ago, I did a whole bunch of research on that very topic.
Awesome. Mhm. Awesome.
Yeah, I think in the following, so this is our,
I
there we
see
go.
that. Yeah.
I'm going to turn my camera off because it seems like I'm a little cool. So that's going to give you a running list. One of the things that we didn't cover today, but is going to be in the top there, is the coverage from my perspective on CCs and PETs at the privacy, risk, and security event, as well as the ACES event, which is our gathering of nations for tribal nations around security. So I've put some of those very, very high level updates from the perspective of a essentially high level security or IP lawyer, what their biggest concerns were there. The one thing that I will say, I'll save those notes until there's a larger group, but I do think it's worth noting that in the security and IP lawyer space, even when they're in the same room as regulators, their understanding of this continues to not match that of regulators. And it's creating confusions that I think there's, there's right, like the false positives and false negatives issue. What I saw this time was a tremendous amount of concern and thrashing from companies around PETs that are not even implementing them, to be very clear. I saw an entire panel oriented at security engineers, of which one of the companies, and this is a well-known journalistic enterprise in the US, had 0 implementations of PETs in their architecture. And I asked the question as to why they were brought onto the panel about privacy enhancing technologies. They had no technologies present to speak about. That, I think, shows us a very clear deficit that's very easy to fix. Again, that's just media communication around regulation. That's a bigger problem that I'm seeing generally. And it's one that I'd like us to carry a little bit more. It means that we can continue communicating our RFIs, but having MITRE representation on this call also closes that gap right away. So.
What's a PET? PETs?
Privacy enhancing technology. So
okay.
confidential computing, fully homomorphic encryption, those sorts of things.
Right.
Differential privacy.
Sorry.
On down
I
the
know
list.
No, fine. No, it's one of those things that suddenly became current, and if you don't know it, you don't know it. So we reckon that confidential computing fits within that umbrella, but also we say that it's complementary. You can use other PETs with confidential computing if you want to.
You know, something came up at MITRE the other day. Homomorphic encryption was lumped in with confidential computing. Do we think they're that FHE or HE actually is a confidential computing technology?
Oh no, absolutely not. So confidential computing is very well specified and defined by us as the protection of data in use by hardware-based attested execution environment, trusted execution environments. Fully homomorphic encryption is a TEE. They both fit under that umbrella, but FHE or HE is definitely not confidential computing.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
Yeah. I tried to correct my folks, but there must be some legacy. Maybe they evolved together at one point.
No, we've always kept them very, very separate. It's bizarre that they've been, that's come up. I'm always happy to be contacted to correct these sorts of misunderstandings.
They're both mechanisms for obscuring what happens on a workload while it's in use, right? So in that way, as Mike pointed out, they're both TEEs, they're both trusted execution environments, but they come at it.
No. FHE is not a TE. It's really not a trusted execution environment because it's not an execution environment. It's a mechanism. It's a mathematical construct that you can use. So it's not. I would strongly say it's not a TE.
The point I was going to make before that, before I launched Mike off, what was
trigger.
Well, while the cryptographic math of FHE is pretty cool, our advisor here at Injuna is also the person who founded FHE, so Dan Bonet over at Stanford. But the difference is about 1 million to 1 performance penalty between the two. So while I think one is a mathematical curiosity, I think the other is a practical way for running real workloads.
Yeah, and another thing alongside that is that you can use standard programming, standard execution of your standard programs within a trusted execution environment. Whereas for FHE, you need to rewrite everything, and you can't. Division and stuff is complex and stuff. So it's about general compute is possible in a TEE with confidential computing.
Yeah. The other things you may have heard of are garbled circuits and zero proof trust or zero trust proofs. Those are all cryptographic solutions that are probably closer to FHE than confidential computing.
Yes, I have heard zero trust proof. Yeah. Okay. Yes, agreed.
Yeah, and one of the major issues that I think that I'm seeing is that there's communication to, at least, I'm going to speak only to the US government because that's what I was thinking of last week, but there is a strong, and this has happened in the last 5 years, strong regulatory requirements which are coming in from emerging technologies. That is necessary. You must have new language for new objects, especially if they behave differently with different expectations. And I am seeing those come down, but on Friday I was sitting in so it's a talking circle. So this is tribal leaders and security leaders speaking to the White House, in which the White House does not get to speak for 1 hour, which is a very interesting room.
I bet.
Yeah, well, I make sure to show up once a year to Gathering of Nations so that I can get that information. And every year, I've been going since I was 17, every year the concern has been generally around cybersecurity as something that we'd love to implement better in education. This year, 4 people had taken the microphone about infrastructure cybersecurity concerns before I was able to make a comment on the only reason I was there, which was that. So that's a massive class of end consumers to central government regulation. One of the estimates from a 3-letter agency that I received this year was that there was approximately $1.48 billion gap in infrastructure funding and what was actually intaken, meaning that is like, right, yes, admittedly, that's less than 1% of the DoD budget. That's not actually a big number, but that's significant in that it means that the government was expecting to put that much money towards infrastructure, and we didn't have the language clear enough to the end users, right? We're talking tribal governments or distal governments or 3-letter agencies to be able to absorb that. That's something that we really need to improve. And that is something where Linux Foundation has a strength as the antitrust to do that in an appropriate way. So, and then maybe next year we go to the talking circle and we say we solved the problem, but that doesn't often happen. But that is something that I'd like to leave open as a broader discussion. I put it into my notes from right at the end of the PSR. I write down my statements that I make to these talking circles before I give them. The only statement that I made was exactly on this topic, that we need clearer communication from central government to distal governments and agencies, as I have been able to see for 4 to 5 years, but the privacy enhancing technologies specifically, this was the major concern for that entire audience. And when I say that audience, when I say tribal leaders, I usually mean someone who is considered a tribal leader in their tribe, but they are usually a significant leader sitting within a 3-letter agency. So these are complaints from US 3-letter agencies around privacy enhancing technologies and enablement. So that's something that I'm going to report a little bit more, but I think I'll give a couple of templates and examples of where we might think of engaging actively, but I do think we need to break apart our content next year into knowing when we're communicating with regulators, as we're able to do here with MITRE in the room, right? With communicators and to regulators. So this is to the communicators, to central government. And very separately, when we're producing our end consumer materials, things that looked more for someone that's looking to purchase PET or CC, generally, I'm staying in the PET space for this larger concept. When we are trying to communicate to them, I think that we may need to be much more clear about providing the actual spaces in which our RFI requests, et cetera, have gone in, because it is quite literally the fact that they are not using exact enough language around this technology to be able to release the funding. So that's it. But I think that's a problem we've known we'd have. But in security, the gap we saw this year, 2024, was the biggest that I've ever seen.
Murray, could you maybe tell us a bit about where you sit in MITRE and your interests and responsibilities? That would be really helpful and interesting as well.
Okay. Right now?
Yeah, why not? If that's
Okay.
cool with everyone else.
Great. So I lead the cloud security capability area at MITRE. I started in 2014. They were sort of just getting into cloud. They were still wrestling with the government's cloud first, Obama and Vivek Kundra as the government federal CIO, cloud first policy, and reconciling security. Security was an issue, the cost of security. We have to implement security. FedRAMP was emerging. And so I sort of built a capability area at MITRE out of the cyber lab. So we're fairly rich. We don't have the legacy history like the MITRE attack team, so to speak. I've published a few things, mostly sort of light reading papers and mostly presentations through the Cloud Security Alliance. Nothing earth-shattering, but so our work is all U.S. government agency related. Typically, we do have some White House work as well, and so my goal in interacting with the standards bodies is to bring the voice of U.S. government, in particular to confidential computing. It is definitely, and we believe throughout MITRE, it's definitely the next big security solution for the cloud. And being the cloud lead, I need to be on top of it. So a couple of years ago, I think it was 2021, before the pandemic, we had, you guys were, had already kicked off and we knew about you. We had a MITRE internal with government TEM where we started talking about, some of the government action, and it was before the White House's PET sort of memo. And as a way to get our sponsors to start recognizing it, there's quite a few capabilities now, typically chip-based and differing, by the chip in the cloud providers, Amazon, Azure, Oracle, Google, and so reconciling those and how to use them is sort of something we're on a quest to do now, so that we can help government adoption. In my opinion, the ability to test to what's in the enclave on a regular, ongoing, routine basis, I think should revolutionize zero trust. It's very zero trusty.
Hugely. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, agreed, 100%.
And we are pushing zero trust. We're helping. There's a number of zero trust EOs and memos that drive the government to implement zero trust. Nothing's necessarily driving the cloud providers to implement zero trust yet, although they give us some great tools. So I see this world where, there's attestation going on all the time, real time, about everything. And I want to know, even before I talk to an endpoint, whether it's a friend or a service that I'm using, I want to know, at some point I'm going to want to know something about what they're running and, on their system. The secure boot is too old. It's too point in time. And, so this is just a magnificent thing. I think we need to be pushing to controlling our own ephemeral keys, the keys on the chip that they're using. You still end up having to trust the chip maker as the key authority for that base private key that's sort of stuck on the chip. So I worry about, who do I have to trust in all of this? I don't like certificate authorities, key authorities that I can't own and run. So, and anyway, those are some
that's really helpful. Let me respond and give you a bit of background and history and kind of where we sit and where we kind of see ourselves. So we were founded in 2019, as I'm sure aware, and we're up to kind of 50 folks now, including all of the main the hyperscalers, apart from Amazon. I'll come to that in a moment. We're not a standards body. The question of whether there should be certification mechanism or program comes up from time to time, and for now we've ducked it for a number of reasons, complexity certainly being one of them, but certainly not the only one. And our goal is to promote use of these technologies, and particularly around open source. So, one of the things obviously we want to be doing is engaging with the US government and agencies. So I'm sure Ava Black, ex-Microsoft. Ava used to be involved with this and is now at CCC. So that's a point of contact. But exploring more and getting more points of contact, certainly through MITRE and NIST and folks, makes a huge amount of sense from our point of view. On your point about trusting the keys in the silicon, I generally say to people, really, most people don't need to worry about it. The US government is one of the few bodies who I think is big enough and exposable enough that it is something that needs to be thought about. And I think we need to do some work on that. I've got some thoughts around that I would love to be exploring with you, and I'm already trying to explore some other people. And attestation, you're right, is got to be a part of how we look at the world. And if you think, once you've got attestation and zero trust, you start getting some interesting things. And I'm sorry, Steve, and I'm sorry, Sal, but something I've been thinking about for a while. I wrote this a few years ago because I was just so frankly peed off about the fact that we don't have language to talk about this stuff, and we don't have frameworks to do it. And so there's that. And so we are all about trying to raise visibility, whilst at the same time working on some of the technical standards and background pieces. Not as a standards body, but working with protocols, feeding stuff in and through the IETF. So, for instance, the attestation group who you visited yesterday have close links with the IETF folks. There's quite a lot of people who are on both of those. We're doing work on Linux kernel pieces as well. And there's this group, but there's, as Sal will be able to tell you in lots of detail, we've got now, I think, as of this week, 14, is it now, with Manatee, different open source projects, which are part of what we do. The most recent one submitted by TikTok, interestingly, because TikTok are desperate to show that they can't be doing bad things. And this is one way, making it open source and using confidential computing is a way of providing that assurance in ways that they can't through process or organizational or contractual measures. So, you know, I always think it's really interesting, and I'm very positive about their involvement. So the last thing I said I'd come back to is Amazon. So although we have no problem with Amazon at all, there are some political issues in terms of whether they're happy about being part of the CCC and their Nitro technology doesn't, we generally feel, fit the definition of confidential computing, in that it's not hardware based. But that doesn't mean that, you know, people aren't using that for particular things. The different types of isolation it gives you, if that fits your risk profile, then that's fine. And I know that, you know, Angina, for which Steve works, have products and services which also work using a Nitro, I believe, Steve. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, you know, it's about...
And we've worked incredibly hard to get Amazon into this group. Have not succeeded yet, but we keep trying.
Yeah. And you know, Amazon do have
IBM with you guys, because I think they're different.
Z series, is that?
Yep.
Yes, and no, we also need to talk with them as well. I had a very interesting conversation with Reinhardt, can't remember his second name, in Vienna a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, absolutely. So there's some interesting bits and pieces there. But I think, you know, one of the things that I'm very keen on is saying, look, these technologies are about changing your risk profile and understanding what these technologies allow you to do, what isolation capabilities they provide, what assurances, what attestation they provide, is what allows you to make decisions. I'm always saying that CISOs don't care about security. It's in their title. They don't care about security. What they really care about is risk. And if we can help the ecosystem and decision makers understand the changing risk options and profiles based around adoption of different technologies, often, you know, in depth, you know, with each other, then we're doing the right thing. And I absolutely agree that the confidential computing absolutely gives you a whole bunch of new capabilities and new ways of doing that, which allow you to change your risk profile. And I'd also say, Mary, that I am always happy, and we can always find you people to talk to, you know, to get in front of, either in person or remotely, your colleagues at MITRE or elsewhere and other agencies, if it would be useful. So please be aware that we have people. I'm not US citizen, but I am Five Eyes, which ain't too bad. And I've had that sort of clearance before. So we can do that sort of thing if you want. We're always very keen to be working with folks such as MITRE on these sorts of areas.
I would like to set up something where, you know, maybe we together, the CCC, can talk to the MITRE Cloud Security Roundtable, which
Sounds
is
great.
only one day a month on a first Friday of every month. I get a large patch of the MITRE cyber folks coming to that. So that would be good. Because I'm trying to teach MITRE. I'm trying to get my folks to start pushing confidential computing, start using it. Still so new for us, and yet we have capabilities in the cloud for at least 2-3 years.
Oh yeah, and then some if you look at some of the early stuff. But yeah, mature for at least 2 years now, very much.
The other thing I think that's missing right now in any of the standards and any of the implementations, although I think some could be morphed, is this notion of an attestation service where if I'm a software developer and a service is running my code, I can host my hashes per se, and I know that, you know, there are ways to do that, but when you build a software suite and then you run it in an enclave, you get very different hashes than you would get, you know, from the individual code elements. And so there may need to be this attestation service that says, okay, I'm going against the Amazon API for the S3 bucket, say, And I want to know if I'm talking to the API that's actually running the Amazon recently approved and released and authorized certified code. And there's nowhere for me to go do that.
No, so this is absolutely something which the CCC is trying to work its way around and through at the moment. So I wrote a document which started doing this, and then it branched into two different work streams, and I need to resurrect one of them, which is about business models for attestation verification services.
Yes,
and there's big
perfect.
questions like, who should be running this? Should it be the CCC? Should it be MITRE? Should it be the LF? Should it be the US government?
Yes,
Should it
absolutely.
be NASDAQ? Should it be who? And we don't know the answer. And I think there will be multiple answers, but it sounds like I should get you involved in that document when I resurrect it, which I keep
If we do it for
nearly
cloud,
doing.
if we do it for cloud, I'm willing to kick that off within MITRE as an effort. Absolutely.
You know, we're always going to need multiple from different jurisdictions, different sectors, different use cases, but we need to start having some of these discussions. And on the technical side, that's happening, but not so much on the business side. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good. Now there's another sector of MITRE within my cyber lab that focuses on the S-bomb. And the S-bomb, the H-bomb, the X-bomb, the cloud bomb is now becoming, S-bomb it's made its way into the NIST secure software development standards. It's in executive order language. And this notion of tracking your S-bomb, verifying your S-bomb, and using it to share an understanding of vulnerabilities that we all might share, kind of thing. Sort of that derived analytic that might come from a super sharing of S-bombs.
Yep.
Yes, I can jump
Go
in
ahead,
on
Sal.
Yeah, Sal, jump in, definitely.
So for this one, okay, the honest answer is I am going to Sauce Fusion and I'm going to get all the updates on this that I possibly can. When I was at Sonatype, we were running into this problem of like FedRAMP specifically asking us to deliver S-bombs, but S-bombs are differential in their lossiness over languages. As is the security. Like, okay, what are we trying to do here? Okay, we still literally cannot find all of the Log4j, Log4 shells because of the way the job was. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Anyway, everything's fine. That's why I switched over to confidential computing, right? For the isolation of these issues if we cannot actually absorb and get rid of them. So we'll talk about the supply chain and the isolation separately.
When I click around.
Oh, so the supply chain, there's two separate ideas where attestation is going to come up, and I'm going to clarify both of them because I also need to go to Atlanta for this. So usually when we're talking about attestation, right, it's just like I invoke that I am speaking to and of authority, right, in general, right? And so we're used to a more vernacular understanding of that in the supply chain, meaning that I simply attest to this S-bomb, which we know is wildly insufficient, especially with the kind of supply chain attacks that we have, especially if they're inside actors, meaning we must now have a reproduction of the entire supply chain for vulnerabilities that we had before. Importantly, though, and this is the way that I consider it, embedding the dimension of time. Time is the only thing by which we can backlog against inside actors, and the FedRAMP is reconstructing around that. That's much more intelligent. That is a much more centralized way of doing it than any other ways we could possibly get control of that supply chain. So there's where CC is specifically important. So there's this entire class of FedRAMP, and then the two that are heavily impacted by this are different and interesting. And yours is the biggest class right now, which is cloud, right? But it's cloud for sensitive data being computed. My best and favorite example of this is going to be, for now, human trafficking, because we could not do human trafficking compute until confidential computing. We frog jumped regulation for the first time in my career with technology. Great, right?
Oh, I'd like to understand how that worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not familiar, but sounds great.
Yeah. So I'll send you, this is Intel SGX. I'll just send you some
It's a really nice use case. We should be clear, we're talking anti-human trafficking, right? But just
yeah, of course.
being physical architecture.
When
which
I did fraud prevention, it always killed me that we called it fraud. I was part of the fraud group, and
The fraud program.
That explains so much, Steve. Now I understand.
yeah.
Thank you
Sorry.
for that clarification, Jenny. So yes, so that I would say this is like 80% of the market share and awareness right now, and what we need regulation and understanding around. The other side is also incredibly interesting. So when I was at the security lawyers focus, when I made my comments about the veracity of the privacy enhancing technology in the room, that immediately caught the attention of course, the head of security engineering for Toyota. It's all of your IoTs, or your IoTs perhaps have a human being inside of them. And then again, coming into our area where you have human rights protections. So those two spaces are fascinating. And that's where confidential computing is actively being implemented. There are increasing cases, depending on threat models, where this may need to be suggested in the future.
Yeah, so on the whole IoT thing, one of the big things that's coming along in the next year to 18 months is that the ARM technology, the CCA realms, is coming out, and that's something which hasn't been available till recently. And of course, most of the Intel and all of the Intel and AMD solutions are very much aimed at server. Server type things and cloud. Whereas although the ARM CCR realms are also aimed partly at that, of course, given ARM's footprint in the marketplace, we're going to see more sort of edge gateway, at least, even if it's not all the way into the IoT. So that means that we're going to be seeing CC moving out to the edge in ways that it really hasn't very much so far. And there's in fact a project. One of the open source projects is part of the CCC called ISLET, I-S-L-E-T, from Samsung, which uses this technology for edge wallet type use cases.
Yeah, I definitely see the edge. I was looking at fog computing, right? The super distributed cloud network. I think confidential computing is could bring that, because it'll enable it from a security perspective.
Yeah, and we've also in the last few months seen a growing interest from the Web3 folks who want to be able to provide compute, but prove that they're not messing with it.
Right.
A lot of our early customers are all in the Web3 space.
That's really interesting, Steve. I'd love to see some use cases added to our use case set around that. It would be really, really nice. So please, if you've got some, let's work out how to add some of those.
Back to the topic of pets, secure multi-party compute is one of the things that falls under the privacy enhancing technology umbrella, and the Web3 folks have pretty much declared that dead. It was essentially a security through obscurity approach. You have a plurality of compute, and you work the workload across that. You expect a hacker can't get into all of the nodes. The last data I have was from 2023, where we lost about $3.5 billion of cryptocurrency that just disappeared on various blockchains, all to attackers getting to multiples of the voting instances inside the blockchain.
Wait, so multi-party compute is not a use case for confidential computing?
I think they're complementary. Mike made the point about pets being complementary. It's a cryptographic approach, and Sal will have more. It's a cryptographic approach to making computing difficult to attack. But just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's impossible, and hackers have proved.
I want to clarify, because you did say use case. Let's just make sure that multi-party compute, federated compute, absolutely a use case, but that's a different.
So, and also secure multi-party compute. Sometimes.
Let's separate the use cases of multi-party compute and the technology of secure multi-party compute. So the Web3 folks have zillions of white papers on cryptographic multi-party compute solutions. If you look at Gartner, they've got a big red X through it now as a dead technology. But for a while, it was on the hype curve, making its pass through.
A
So
dead
the
technology.
terminology is very confusing because there's lots of people that do large scale parallel compute that's also called multi-party compute that has nothing to do with what the Web3 folks call
With
secure
that particular
multi-party.
technological approach. Yeah.
Correct.
It is tricky. And confidential computing and possibly other PETs give you ways to get the capabilities that particular technology, which has been shown to have significant problems, had promised without the same risks that it has. Of course, everything has risks and everything has vulnerabilities, etc. But there's a whole class of problems that you can knock off by using confidential computing because it just removes them.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me ask you another thing. Did you want
Well-
to say something, Sal? I have one other question.
Yeah, but the class of things that drop off once you use timestamps and basically get repo your massive
Yeah.
S-box.
Yeah.
That's what you drop off. And wow, everyone wants that right now.
Yeah, I would say. Okay, so back to the concept of what is confidential computing. So we engaged IBM, and they told us that they weren't doing it. They were isolating memory by physical chip, not by encryption. Do we still allow that to be? Is that still
So
confidential?
the Z series question is one which hasn't been addressed in 4 years. There was initial discussions about 4 years ago about that approach, and I know that it's matured and changed. So in fact, that's a conversation that I think we need to be having now. The definition of confidential computing talks about hardware-based and attested. Now, you could say that if it's being isolated by the chip, that is hardware-based, but exactly what that looks like is kind of up for debate. So, I mean,
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, Steve, did you say something?
I argued when we wrote that definition, I argued very much that the feature we're after is isolation. So you're after isolation and you're after attestation. So hardware-based isolation and hardware-based root of trust with attestation. And part of my goal at the time was there are other technologies like nitro enclaves is the biggest one, that the isolation is done in a different means than encryption. Z system is that way. The H100s are that way. The H100s don't encrypt
NVIDIA?
everything from NVIDIA. And so I
They
think
don't encrypt?
and the ARM Morello stuff, too early to tell whether that's going to land in confidential computing or whether that's going to be something different. They're Sherry smart pointer type stuff. But that's another hardware-based isolation technology that I kind of think should be in the definition, but that's one that the confidential compute TAC will have to argue about and do some mud wrestling to say whether it fits in the circle or not. So those are my opinions.
One thing we like about the chip-borne encryption solution, TEE, based on encryption. So I don't know, sometimes I've seen that secure enclave, SEV.
Yep.
Yeah.
It needs to be SEV SMP is the SEV early generations didn't have all the capabilities you require in order to get the isolation, integrity, and confidentiality. But the SMB SMP does. So just to be clear, but yeah.
Okay. The one thing I do like is that if you do a core dump, you get nothing but encrypted stuff, encrypted with the ephemeral key launched by the chip. So it makes it very hard as an administrator who might own the box, particularly at the edge, who might own the box, to be able to dump what's in the enclave.
So
now,
the key. Sorry,
I don't know if you get that same protection with like the IBM solution. And now maybe I'm questioning the NVIDIA. I didn't know they didn't encrypt.
So in terms of the IBM Z series, I haven't looked at it for 3 years, so we're going to need to have another look. The main thing that the Confidential Computing Consortium has been trying to do with the definition as is to say, even if you have full control and administrative control of that box, whether it's malicious or authorized, you cannot break the assurances and the isolation. That's what we're trying to do. And that is where the Nitro, as we understand at the moment, that's where the gray area is, because as an administrator, with full control of that, we have no proof that can't be done, and we're looking for technical proof rather than process proof. And this is why we went with this hardware-based definition. And there will be new technologies, and some of them are going to be gray, and some of them will be in, some of them will be out. But we don't, in the same way that we don't insist that members of the CCC only do open source, we also don't insist that they only use solutions that we kind of approve of or think of as confidential computing. That would be insane. Because it's mix and match, right risk profiles. Now we're trying to push the technology that we're based around. That's appropriate. That's what the body's for. But that doesn't mean that there aren't appropriate uses for other technologies as well.
You made a comment about getting access to the memory, and I do think encrypting the memory is stronger than some of the other isolation techniques that are out there. You can put them on a scale. It supports resilience against a physical attack that the bus unplugging that System Z and the bus unplugging that Nitro Enclaves does not provide. Right? If you can physically get to the memory, you can get to the contents.
That's a really very good point.
Whereas in SEV, TDX, SGX, they're all resilient to a physical attack. How concerned you should be about a physical attack depends on the situation and the problem you're trying to solve.
Risk profiles again.
Yeah. Your example of the core dump is one of the things that is the size of the enclave matters. So if you can get into the VM and you can do a core dump from within the VM, even though the memory is encrypted, the CPU will generously decrypt it for you and give you the core dump and give you a raw core dump. So this is where I think MITRE has a lot to offer in terms of attack vectors and talking about which technologies protect against which attack vectors in a much more nuanced way.
I agree. I would like to see more work done by the CCC on attack vectors, but it needs to come from the outside, and users and bodies like MITRE are very well positioned to do that. I would
love to put together that presentation for the Cloud Roundtable on what industry thinks MITRE should be doing to help. That would be great.
I will say, just around the specificity of the hardware attestation here, the end user class for this, it's been best explained to me as it's every case where we have to use hardware attestation to protect our circles of least privilege. In the case now where there is massive compute at the center of the target, such that the threat model is now, can we engineer something in which we have to now solve the problem of Administrator Jekyll and Hyde, which is so cool. So yeah, so for GPU, right, there's two things. So the TE is everything that I can do to protect my least privilege, except if it actually is the person themselves. In that case, if they do get into the system, there's a thing called bio-limiting, which means you just rate limit what comes out to what is like humanly readable, like the speed of output. Those are our two, like one super cheap, easy solve if they get inside, but the thing on the outside is what we actually want to do, right? So.
Okay. One thing I wanted to bring up during my travels, what I found, are you guys familiar with the NIAP profile that actually addresses confidential computing? It's at some level. There is no, now this is NSA and industry generally. And so I have pushed this, call it, government standard or profile into our 5G technologies for the government and 5G adoption. But there's not a single vendor that has certified their hardware against it. Not a single one. And that's kind of sad at the moment. So, it's...
Well, we
it's
have a
hard
vendor
to-
in the room, Steve. Oh, yeah, but a muted vendor in the room. There we go.
I
Steve,
don't
what vendor
offer
are
any
you from?
software or hardware,
Where are you
but
from?
we're certainly interested in ways we can get the software certified as a point of trust. Currently, today, we use NCC Group to audit what we do so that we can provide an audit report or an attestation report from them to say a third party has looked at the code and provides their guarantees. So I'm definitely interested. I was typing in the URL to
That explains why you went quiet.
yes.
Mhm. I can
So,
give you my
Mary,
presentation.
I would love you to give this presentation either the GRC or the TAC, possibly the entire TAC. I think it would be really appropriate. So could I encourage you to get in touch with Dan Middleton, who was on the call yesterday? We can get you his details if needs be. He's the chair of the TAC at the moment, and I think that this would be a very good thing to present to the TAC about, because the members need to know about this.
You may see it in memos coming out of DoD right now. The other thing is, are you aware of the Enduring Security Framework? It's another NSA collaborative now with CISA, and they recently looked at it at confidential computing for 5G, and noting that you need these attestation services, and you should be using the TEE. So that's one thing. There's papers here.
Just to go back to that, how can we get the CCC in the room where this stuff is discussed? Because this is new. The stuff about the 5G stuff is completely new to me, and we, as the body, we should absolutely be getting involved with this and exposing this to a broader set of people, and hopefully giving some technical input as well where appropriate. So please help us find ways to get into the room.
This is all brand new. This is why I made this brief to say, look, this stuff is coming. We all need to start pushing it. So if I can get a broader perspective for MITRE, it'll push faster because we're in there doing it, our cyber folks. The other thing, let me just real quick, 1800-33, this was an NCC. This is part of MITRE's work with NIST, where we did some demos with the OmniTrue and whatnot. Was more an attestation service thing. I don't think they had a true TEE system. IBM was part of it. So putting together systems is one thing that the NCCOE has done. NISTR, which is now I can't remember, internal requirements. Now I can't remember what NISTR stands for. Doggone it.
Whatever.
Anyway, yeah, another NIST. This is sort of on the realm of trying to get NIST going on these standards and helping out. There was recently one. Are you aware of 8320? Oh, I'm sorry. That was 8320. There's I think that's it. Yeah. All right. So 8320 is sort of the evolving hardware-enabled security standard that we think hopefully will become a regular special pub.
Okay, we need to get involved with this. Could you just go back to that last slide you had?
Yeah. What was on it?
Had the definition at the top.
Oh, the definition. This is how the enduring security framework folks define
No, it wasn't that one.
Wasn't that one?
Another definition. Yeah, sorry. Stop.
Yep.
There we go. Okay, right. So they are quoting us there, not the definition I'd like to see quoted, but it's not far off. Cool. So we need to get you and this exposed more generally to different parts of the CCC and work out how to make the most of it. This is a great initial conversation, but there's only 3 people apart from you here, and we need to get this exposed. Please send it. And what we'll actually do is we'll get it onto the mailing lists and stuff as well, and take it from there. But this is hugely. I'm so pleased you've turned up, Murray. Murray, is that how do you like to pronounce your name, sir? Murray. Okay.
Yeah, Murray.
Been assuming all this time. So sorry, Murray is good. Great. Yeah, let's get you involved. I would love to have MITRE as a member of the CCC. As an associate member, it's free because you're a not-for-profit. So if we can make that happen, that would also be fantastic.
Oh yeah, help me figure that out.
Okay, I will. Let me just. What's your email address? And I'll write an email right now to the right people.
Yes, mspina, MSPINA, at mitre.org.
Okay, I am making that. I've started that conversation off right now. Fantastic. Kind of top of the hour. Anyone have anything else? This has been really, really useful.
It doesn't look like I might not be able to post this file, so I might need to email it. Who should I email it to? The one I just showed?
The person. To the TAC mailing list. I will also get Rian to. I'll put in the same email to get you onto the TAC mailing list.
Okay.
So is there anything else I should do? Is that sounds make sense? Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Good.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much indeed.
Well,
So proud of you.
You're great.
Like, thank you so much for showing up to this meeting. But like, this is the kind of thing where now, next time you have a question, we can get you a white paper. That would be great.
Oh, yay. Very good. Thank you. I don't know. I was upset with the IBM guys one day. But Steve, where are you from?
I'm in California,
No, but what company?
in Juneau.
In Juneau. Okay. Oh, I love Juneau. We had them out to MITRE just recently. We met you guys at
you missed
RSA.
a trip. Bad luck, Steve.
You probably met Dwayne and Mark somewhere.
Yeah. RSA conference. Yeah.
Yep.
So cool.
Well, we're planning to be at RSA again this year. We've got a number of submissions in there, and we'll probably have a booth as well. So hopefully we can meet up there.
You guys are
Fantastic.
great. Thank you.
And you're great as well. Thanks a lot. Really good to see you.
Okay.
Catch you around. Thanks.
Ditto.
Bye.
Ditto that.
Bye.
Bye.